gardeners, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be talking about 10 ways that you can keep your reptiles nice and healthy. And today, obviously, we are joined by Dude, my bearded dragon, so hopefully by the end of this video, my entire neck won't be completely red and full of scratch marks, because that's what usually happens. So these 10 ways to keep your reptiles healthy are in no particular order whatsoever, so I'm just gonna get right into it. So the number one thing to keep your reptiles healthy, especially if you're keeping multiple reptiles, is to make sure that you're washing your hands in between handling each and every single one of your reptiles. So let's say you own a snake and a lizard. Every time you handle your snake, you want to make sure that you're going to be washing your hands in between handling your snake before you pick up your lizard. It's important to do this with every single animal because some animals can have underlying illnesses such as like a respiratory infection that can be highly contagious to your other reptiles, and you don't want them to get sick as well. So by washing your hands in between handling every single one of your animals, you won't be passing on any illnesses or mites or anything like that, and it will surely keep your animal nice and healthy. This is something to also keep in mind even if you own one reptile. Let's say you go to a reptile show or something and you're handling a reptile there, or you visit your friend's house and you hold one of their reptiles, you should always make sure that you wash your hands after handling any other type of reptile before you come back home and handle your own reptiles. The second way to keep your animals nice and healthy, this goes for snakes in particular, and this rule is to basically not handle your snake for at least 24 hours after it has eaten. Some people do take their snakes out and feed them somewhere else, and I honestly don't agree with this method whatsoever because you shouldn't be handling your snake immediately after it is eaten. And if you put it in a separate container, then you're obviously going to have to pick it up to put it back in its enclosure. And it's just not a good idea because it's stressful for your snake. They don't want to be handled right after they've eaten. I mean, just picture if you just ate a huge meal and then some person just like picked you up by your stomach and was squeezing you. Like, you would not like that feeling whatsoever. And because it can cause the animal stress, there is a potential chance that they will regurgitate their meal, which is extremely stressful for them. So if you do wait the 24 hours, it's going to be better for your snake because they aren't going to be as stressed out. There isn't going to be a risk for regurgitation, and that will lead to a healthier and happier animal. Number 3 is variety in diet. So no matter what type of reptile you're keeping, they all have different dietary restrictions, but the most important thing to realize is that variety is key. So if you do have a lizard that's an insectivore, you want to make sure that you're feeding them not just one simple insect like crickets. By offering different types of insects and variety in the diet, you're going to be offering more vitamins, nutrients, and minerals into your animal's diet, and it's just going to make them that much more healthy. If you have a snake, obviously, then variety isn't something that you're going to have to worry about because all they eat are rodents. So there's not really much more you can do for that. But if you do keep an animal that does eat vegetation, you want to make sure that you're going to be trying lots of different vegetables, different leafy greens. But again, you want to make sure that whatever you're feeding them isn't toxic for them. Number 4 is something that I've seen kind of a lot, and I don't know why pet stores still sell this stuff. I'm like completely against freeze-dried insects because they're just lacking all of the vitamins and nutrients that a live insect would provide for your animal. It's lacking all of the moisture, and it's just so much healthier to feed your animal the actual live insect. So if you are keeping an insectivore, I highly recommend not buying the freeze-dried insects. Don't feed that to your animals. I mean, it's kind of like you feeding yourself. You don't want to just eat freeze-dried fruit. You want like a real fruit. It's just so much healthier for you, and it's going to be better for your animal in the long run as well. So if you want a healthy animal, stick to the live insects and don't use the freeze-dried insects. Number 5 has to do with supplementation. So this is the calcium with and without D3 depending on what type of animal you're keeping, the UVB that's needed, and the multivitamins. So this is completely different for every single type of reptile that you could be keeping. You need to make sure that you're doing the proper research to make sure you're giving the proper supplementation. But if somebody is not doing the proper supplementation, the animal can get very, very sick with metabolic bone disease or other types of vitamin deficiencies, and that's not something that you want to deal with. So I highly recommend looking into the supplementation just to make sure that you're doing it properly for your animal in order to make sure that they're nice and healthy. If you are unaware of UVB or supplementation and how this stuff works, I made an entire video on it. I will put the link in my description, and hopefully that will help explain things better and get you a better understanding of supplementation and how to properly provide it for your animal. Number 6 has to do with plants in your enclosures as well as the plants that you feed your animals. So this is very important. If you have a naturalistic enclosure with live plants, or you have a bearded dragon that eats vegetation, you need to make sure that whatever you're going to be putting in that animal's enclosure is not toxic for them. So by doing this, you need to research, make sure that if you want to put in a new plant into your enclosure, make sure that it's safe for that animal, and also make sure that you're rinsing it off and there aren't any pesticides on the plants whatsoever, because that can be very dangerous for your animals. Also, if you're going to be feeding something like dandelions to your bearded dragon or whatever the case is, make sure you're not just plucking it from a backyard somewhere, because you never know if there are pesticides on it. So you just want to make sure that you're basically not going to poison your animals, and then that will lead to a healthier and happier life. Number 7 is to dechlorinate your water for your reptiles. So I use ReptiSafe for all of my reptiles, whether it's just for a water bowl or it's for misting down my reptiles. It's very important to use ReptiSafe to dechlorinate that water, because the chlorine in the water is just very bad for them. So you want to make sure it's dechlorinated. So number 8 is gut loading the insects before you feed it to your reptiles. A lot of people aren't aware of what gut loading is, and basically it's when you have insects that are the feeders for your reptiles and you feed them nice healthy vegetables, fruits, any other supplementation that you want to do, and they have that in their belly, and then you feed it to your reptile, and then they get that much more vitamins, nutrients, and minerals through their insects. So it's just way healthier for them. I do this for my superworms and my crickets. Hornworms kind of have their own like special diet, but I mean, you can feed them some like leafy greens and things too right before you feed it to your animals, and it will boost their health in the long run. Number 9 is to basically just pay very close attention to your animal's behavior, because when it comes to keeping reptiles, a lot of reptiles can possibly be sick, and there's no way that you would really be able to tell because it's not as obvious with them, and they can hide their symptoms. So if you do start to notice that your animal is behaving slightly differently and its behavior is just a little bit off, it could be an indication that your animal is sick. So it's just very important to monitor your animals, check on them every single day, and pay attention to that behavior in case you can catch something a little bit early and take them to a vet and then correct it. And number 10 is basically just to take your animal to a vet. So if you do start to notice that your animal is behaving differently, it's not eating, it's not drinking, it's not shedding properly, it just something may seem off, then you should absolutely see a vet. A lot of people think that it's okay and that because it's a reptile it doesn't need to see a vet and it'll be just fine. That's not always the case, and a lot of people just resort to Google and they think that they're gonna find whatever they need there. It's not gonna happen, because I mean, people do that with themselves too. They go on Google and then all of a sudden they think they have cancer or all of these other diseases. It's just not right. You need to make sure that you go to the doctor or you bring your animal to an actual vet that knows what they're dealing with, and they can diagnose your animal properly and take care of it. I can't tell you how many times I get messages from people asking me how to take care of their animal that's sick, and every single time I have to tell them to just take the animal to a vet. I'm not a vet. There's nothing I can do through the internet to fix your animal. Like, sometimes you just need to spend the money, take your animal to the vet, and then hopefully they'll be okay and you'll be able to figure out what the problem is, fix the injury, fix the illness, and that's the only way to resolve the issue. So these are 10 ways that I think you can keep your reptiles healthy in captivity. It is our responsibility as pet owners to make sure that we're providing the proper life for these animals and giving them everything they could possibly need. And there are a lot of little tips and tricks that you learn along the way, so it's just very important to always be doing your research, always pay attention to your animals, and obviously if it seems sick or injured, definitely take it to a vet. So I hope that this video was helpful. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. If you have something else that you would like to add to this list, absolutely leave it in a comment. I would love to see it. And I will see you guys in the next video.